Hey, hey, hey! My name's Helion the Scripted, or Nephilim if you'd prefer. Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. We've gotten to lucky number chapter 7 of the Kiribaku Mulan AU, written by XX Cypress Minerva XX on AO3, which is entitled Eijirou. My birthday is really soon and I'm excited to turn 17 and go back to college. This chapter doesn't have a summary, but that does allow me to ramble a bit more about my plans. I'm hoping to be able to record some of the songs from the Mulan soundtrack with its own eijirou twist. I don't know if it will happen soon, but it is a plan. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 7. To Bring Honour to Us All. Air rustles softly through the treetops, cooling Tomura Shigaraki's flushed skin. His eyes narrow at the setting sun, and he disintegrates the tree closest to him to get a better view. His men wait patiently for him below, and sharpen their blades, knowing better than to disturb his train of thought. They don't bother to raise their heads as Shigaraki's falcon appears, dutifully dropping a small doll into his outstretched hand. Reluctantly tearing his gaze from the snowy mountains, his eyes flicker briefly over the small toy. It's a girl with dark pigtails, pink dress flowing silently in the wind as it smiles at him. He raises it to his nose, sniffing the hair. Red eyes gleam with excitement. Shigaraki lands on the forest floor with a soft thud, and he wastes no time tossing the toy to one of his men. It smacks Darby in the face, and he gives Shigaraki an unimpressed stare as it slides into the palm of his hand. "Well, Darby, what do you see?" Shigaraki says, scratching idly at his neck. The dark-haired man stares at it for a moment, before his lips twist into a scowl. "Black pine, from the mountains, probably." Compress plucks a hair from its dress, twirling it in his hands. "White horsehair, eh? Imperial stallions sure are boring looking. So lacking in flair." "Smells like sulphur from cannons," Darby added with a sigh. "Came from a village in Tungshao Pass." Shigaraki's eyes gleam manically as he speaks, fingers scratching relentlessly at his pale skin. "Where the Imperial Army is waiting for us." "Avoiding them will be a piece of cake!" Twice pumps his fist in the air before curling in on himself as if he'd been punched. "I hate cake, let's get 'em!" "No, you fucking idiot." Darby snarled. "We do that and we expose ourselves." "Yeah, you're right twice." Shigaraki smooths the falcon's plumage with his finger, lips twitching when it coos. "The quickest way to the damn Emperor is through there." His gaze drifts back to the doll, singed with black in Darby's marred hand. "Besides, that brat'll be missing its toy. We ought to give it back, eh?" Hey, no way, this is not a good idea," Denki harumphs for the millionth time, pausing in his pacing to gesture wildly at the redhead combing his fingers through his hair on the other side of the reeds. "What if somebody sees you?" "Just because I'm a dude doesn't mean I can't smell nice," Eijirou reminds him, shooting him a knowing stare over his shoulder as he combs the gel from his fringe. "I smell awful, dude. I gotta take a bath sometime." Denki slaps his paws over his eyes as Eijirou slips into the water, muttering, "So a couple of dudes don't wash their socks. Picky, picky, picky." Water splashes over his head, and he scowls but doesn't remove his paws. "You should learn to like that corn chip smell, man." Eijirou sighs as all of the tension seems to drain out of his muscles, and he submerges himself up to his neck in the cool lake, breaths making soft bubbles in the water. Denki wrinkles his nose, waving his arms to get his attention. All right, now get out before you get all wrinkly." Eijirou brushes a strand of hair from his eyes with a smirk. "Denki, if you're so worried, go stand watch." Denki scoffs but walks off anyway. Yeah, stand watch, Denki, while I blow my cover with my stupid hair care urges. He casts a knowing glance at Jiro. Hygiene, am I right? I'll be fine, Eijirou insisted. The river was a decent distance separate from the camp, so it's not like anyone could see him from long shot. No one's gonna come down here. The sound of rustling footsteps, some hollers and cheers. Eijirou's heart leapt to his throat, and he didn't bother to look up and see who was coming, or see Denki's panicked "I told you so" look. Instead, he dove behind a nearby rock in a feeble attempt to hide his drenched red hair. If they saw him like this, no, he didn't want to think about it. Eijirou ducked behind a rock just as whoever was coming splashed into the river. He peeked around it, trying his best to not disrupt the water too much. His breathing slowed considerably. There they were, the dastardly duo, and Midoriya too. Midoriya and Sero were flailing around in the water, shouting about the cold water, and Todoroki was carefully wading in. Oh shit, Eijirou breathed, dread building in his gut. This wasn't going to end well. He sunk farther beneath the rock, in a feeble attempt to get away. Hey, Kirishima! Eijirou froze in place as Midoriya's voice rang out. Eijirou whipped around, and he hoped his terror didn't show on his face. Hi! What's up? Where are you going? Sero asked, swimming closer. Eijirou immediately stumbled back, trying to keep distance between them. Damn the consequences. He didn't care if Midoriya saw his hair or not. He had to go before he figured it out. I was taking a bath, but I'm clean now, so I'm going to leave now. Bye. He turned as best he could, being neck deep in water, and attempted to paddle further downstream, but someone caught his arm. Eijirou turned around and discovered it was Todoroki who had grabbed him. Please try to listen, he said blandly, but thankfully let go of Eijirou's arm. I know I haven't been the kindest to you, but we should start over. He cleared his throat before sticking out his hand. I'm Todoroki. Hi, Todoroki. Eijirou sank lower in the water, hesitantly shaking his hand. Midoriya made his way over, sticking out his hand as well. I'm Midoriya, he drawled, but his eyes danced with amusement, which didn't help Eijirou's nerves in the slightest. Hey, Midoriya, Eijirou responded immediately. It was cool that they were all making up, but this was not a good time for it. Not by a long shot. And I, Sero's voice was loud and booming, am Sero, King of the Rock. Sero was standing on top of the very rock Eijirou had been attempting to hide behind moments before. Despite himself, he felt his lips twitch into a small grin. Not if we can help it, Midoriya shouted. Me and Kirishima can take you. He poked the redhead with his elbow. Right? I don't really want to take him anywhere, Eijirou said quickly. It will be fun, Todoroki promised, as deadpan as ever. You know what else would be fun? We could close our eyes and swim around. But Kirishima... Midoriya bumped his shoulder with his fist, smiling brightly for emphasis. We can't let him be the king of the... Ah! Midoriya screeched, suddenly, bloody and panicked, and Eijirou jerked away on instinct. Dead rat! He shrieked. All at once, something floated from the water, bright yellow and small. Denki was flung through the air at Midoriya's thrashing, and all at once, Eijirou understood what had happened. While Todoroki rushed forward to make sure Midoriya was okay, Eijirou slunk backwards. Tokoyami rushed to the water's edge to greet him, and Eijirou hid behind the horse as he leapt out of the water. While the other soldiers were all in a panic over Denki's sudden appearance, Eijirou fetched his towel and practically sprinted into the cover provided by the tall grass. He wasted no time in getting dressed, throwing on his clothes like his life depended on it. Just as he finished, Denki leapt on top of Tokoyami with a shout, appearing from the tall grass as if shot out of a cannon. His fur was matted and wet, and he heaved air into his lungs as if almost drowned. "Oh my god, Denki, are you okay?" Eijirou dropped to his knees, and the Pikachu in question made a grand display of spitting on the ground. "I told you!" Denki shrieked, rustling around in Tokoyami's saddlebags to produce a toothbrush and toothpaste. He squirted a huge amount on the toothbrush, popping it in his mouth unceremoniously. "You better be fucking careful, because I ain't biting no more butts!" Eijirou swallowed around the lump in his throat, left over from his close encounter. "Right, I'll be careful, promise." Jiro leapt up next to Denki and chirped quietly. "Jiro's right," Denki agreed. "You're never bathing when other people could show up again." "Yeah, I get it. I was just scared Midoriya was going to recognize me," Eijirou breathed. The second the words left his mouth, a huge commotion erupted, as almost all the soldiers came barreling from camp, all of them wearing nothing, all of them headed for the river. Eijirou squeezed his eyes shut as they all passed, sinking lower into the grass. "I swear," Denki grumbled, "let's just go back to your tent." "Good idea," Eijirou muttered. He had had enough heart-stopping incidents for one day, thank you very much. The camp was near empty as they made their way back, which Eijirou didn't mind in the slightest. The quiet was refreshing, but in the silence of the camp, it was easy to hear the voices coming from the captain's tent as they passed by. The tent was lit up from the inside, and Eijirou could see the silhouettes of Bakugo and Endeavour standing huddled together, shoulders hunched and fists balled. He slowed to a stop without realizing it, as the voices drifted to his ears. "Your troops are a disaster!" Endeavour's sharp voice accused. "They are not fit for war. My soldiers are fucking capable to defend our borders," Bakugo shouted back. "They will prove themselves, whether you fucking like it or not." "Not if I get any say in it," Endeavour's silhouette examined his ever-present clipboard. "When the Emperor reads my report, your men will never be sent to battle." "You can't do that!" Endeavour pounded his fist on his desk and cut Bakugo off. "He will listen to me. I am his advisor. You are not." He made his way to the tent flap, but paused before exiting. "And I earned my position, unlike you, Katsuki Bakugo." Denki and Jiro ducked into Tokoyami's saddlebags as Endeavour left the tent. He glanced at Eijirou with disgust, who was still staring dumbly at the tent, but said nothing, simply walking off to who knows where. Bakugo stood still in the tent for a moment, before the light finally went out. A second passed, and then he appeared outside. He didn't seem to notice Eijirou starting to make his way to the training yard as he seethed quietly to himself. "Bakugo!" The words were out before Eijirou could stop them. Bakugo stopped dead in his tracks, turning to face Eijirou, still awkwardly hovering off of the tent. "Shitty hair?" he asked. "What the hell are you doing here?" Well, Eijirou hadn't thought this through. He never thinks things through. He just had a desire to comfort the blonde. He didn't deserve Endeavour's unfair treatment, especially after all he'd done for them. Eijirou wanted him to know that. "For what it's worth, I think you're a great captain." It wasn't a particularly grand declaration, rather mediocre really, but the corners of Bakugo's mouth still quirked upwards as he smiled softly, and God if it didn't make Eijirou's heart beat a little faster. "Thanks, Kirishima," he said after a moment. "You're a decent soldier. You've lasted longer than I thought." Bakugo didn't stick around to see what Eijirou would say, just turning back around to head off to wherever he was going, though a bit of the tension seemed to be gone from his steps. It was probably best he didn't turn around, because Eijirou was sure his face was as red as a tomato. In the clamminess in his hands and the butterflies in his stomach were any indicator, he called him by his name, his actual name. He stared dumbly after the captain for a long moment, until Denki's voice finally snapped him out of his trance. "What was that?" the Pikachu demanded. "I think you're a great captain." "Really, dude?" Eijirou blinked at him. "Well, it's true." Denki stared at him for a long minute, before his eyes widened as realization dawned on him. "You like him!" he shrieked, and Eijirou popped out of the saddlebag with a surprised squeak. "What?" Eijirou's eyes widened. Of course he did. Bakugo was so manly, and so easy to admire, and so determined, and oh. No. Denki shook his head vigorously. "No, go to your tent!" "Denki, go!" Denki pointed off towards Eijirou's tent firmly, before grabbing Eijirou and leaping off of Tokoyami. Eijirou sighed, but grabbed Tokoyami's reins and began to walk off. "You're not coming?" he asked when Denki stayed behind, Eijirou with him. "The two of us have things to do." Denki waved him off. "Now you go to your tent and get some sleep." Eijirou wanted to press further, but he owed Denki for biting Midoriya earlier. With a resigned sigh, he made his way to his tent. Denki waited until Eijirou was out of view before turning to his faithful cricket companion. He would have to talk to Eijirou later about his feelings for the captain, but for now he had other things on his mind. "This is bad, Eijirou," he hissed. "We've worked too hard to get Kiri into this war. We can't let stupid Endeavor mess it up." Eijirou gave a scolding squeak. "Of course, I know he's the chaperone or whatever. I'm not that stupid. I have a plan." Denki whipped his head around. "Come on!" Denki led Eijirou forward into the captain's tent. He looked around, climbing atop the desk, searching for what they needed. It didn't take him long to find them: a dish of ink and a blank piece of parchment. Eijirou watched as Denki dragged the items over with his paws, fixing him with a flat stare. "We're gonna write a summons to war," Denki answers the cricket's unspoken question. "Pretend it's from the general." "Endeavor's stupid training report card can't override a summons from the general himself." Jiro's eyes lit up in surprise. She chirps. "Hey, I can be smart sometimes. Now let's get to work. I'll tell you what to write." Eijirou sighed and then nodded, and hopped into the dish of ink. She leapt onto the page, forming the characters of what she deemed was important to their situation. Good, Denki muttered, watching over her work. "Okay, now add in that the League is closing in, yeah, and that they need backup ASAP." Eijirou formed the characters as Denki spoke them, and before long they had a summons to war. Typed all nice and neat. "Perfect!" Denki said happily, scooping the letter up. "Now, come on, we have to deliver it." Denki watched as Endeavor walked away from the river, hissing profanities at the trainees under his breath. Denki spurred the panda he was sitting on, and it began to walk out of the tall grass, lazily munching on some bamboo. He and Eijirou stood in the helmet of the armor set the pair had placed atop the panda. As far as last-minute disguises went, it wasn't bad. They should be able to pass as human. Endeavor's shriek was the only confirmation Denki needed to know that he saw them. "You there!" Denki boomed in his most authoritative voice. Eijirou moved the helmet up and down in time with his words, to give the illusion that the mouth was moving. "I have an urgent letter from the general!" He moved the sticks that the arms were attached to, thrusting the letter in Endeavor's direction. Endeavor took the letter tentatively, blue eyes narrowing into slits. "From the general?" "Yes!" Denki shouted. "It's urgent and important! You better read it, or the Emperor will have your head!" Denki hissed with pain as Eijirou kicked him, but the damage was done. Endeavor's eyes widened as he opened the letter, eyes quickly scanning the page. While he was occupied reading, Denki directed his panda steed to climb up the nearby tree. Endeavor blinked in alarm when he was done with the letter. But when he looked up to question the mysterious messenger, they were already gone. He stood in stunned silence for a moment before finally dismissing the odd encounter. Denki watched as he rushed off, shouting for the soldiers to assemble as he went to find the captain. "Good job, Eijirou!" Denki cheered, ecstatic that their plan worked. "We're moving out!" "Get up, get up, get up! It's time to go!" Denki nudges Eijirou awake. Eijirou jerked up, eyes still groggy from sleep. What's happening?" Denki's face almost shone with pride. "We're going to war!" Eijirou blinked at him as reality slowly dawned in, sleep fading into a distant memory. "What did you do?" he asked finally. "Eijirou Kirishima, so little faith in me." Jiro hopped into the tent, chirping hurriedly. Denki rolled his eyes at the cricket's words. "Well, if you must know, me and Jiro faked a letter from the general to summon you to the battlefield." Eijirou merely sighed, already getting up to pack his tent. "Of course you did!" Denki followed him around as Eijirou swiftly packed up his things, tucking himself securely in Eijirou's collar. "This is good. If you actually find the war, then you can bring honor to your family." "Yeah, you're right." Eijirou finished packing, hoisting himself onto Tokoyami and riding into the main area of the camp, where the other soldiers were in various stages of packing up. Bakugo walked amongst the chaos, directing the soldiers. "Bakugo!" Eijirou called, getting closer. "What's going on?" He already knew, of course, but he wanted to hear it from the captain too. "We finally got word from the general," Bakugo grumbled, but he seemed distracted, too preoccupied with organizing the troops. "We're being called back up in the Camino Pass." "We're heading out now?" "Well, no shit, Kirishima. We can't just ignore it." Bakugo shrugged in response, small smirk spreading across his face. "Soldiers, in formation!" Eijirou backed away, leaving him to work. "Get ready for this," Denki advised, and Jiro chirped her agreement. "This is what you've been training for." "Yeah," Eijirou breathed out, steeling his nerves. "I'm ready." Eijirou knew that the Camino Pass was some distance from the training camp, but he hadn't expected this much travelling. They'd been on the road for 3 days straight now, and Eijirou was ready to pass out from lack of sleep. "How far are we?" he asked as he walked alongside Tokoyami, gripping his reins tightly to prevent himself from falling over. "Captain said we're due to arrive today," Midoriya said helpfully. "It can't be too long." "Relax! Just enjoy the journey," Zero chimed in. "The journey can go die in a ditch," Mineta muttered. If there was one good thing about being on the road, it was that Eijirou had company other than Denki and Jiro. They seemed determined to kindle a friendship, so Midoriya, Zero, and even Todoroki had all been hanging around him through the entire journey, and Eijirou had to admit, they were pretty good company when they weren't trying to kill him. "You should think of something more pleasant," Zero suggested. Like a girl worth fighting for." "A girl worth fighting for?" Midoriya seemed to consider this. "My mom, probably." "That works too," Zero says. "Hey, Toto, what's your type?" "My type?" Todoroki paused. I believe it was blood type O." "No, I meant... Oh, never mind. Help me out here, Midoriya." "I don't know," Midoriya exclaimed. "That's a very random question, Zero. What's yours, anyway?" "Well, that's easy," Zero said smugly. "I like people who can have fun, match my energy, but like, be cool, too." "Match your energy?" Todoroki finally spoke up, too busy staring at the scenery around them. "That seems like a high expectation." Don't get on at me about my tastes. Sarah spoke defensively. I just think it would be cute. What about you, Kiri? What's your type? Instantly, Bakugo flashed in his mind. A plethora of possible answers flooded his brain. Spiky hair, well-built, a leader. But eijirou didn't say any of that. Someone with a kind heart. Aw, that's kind of sweet. Midoriya sighs. I know you'll find that special person, Kirishima. I just know it. Listen to the nerd, Kirishima. He knows all. Zero chimed in. Zero! Nerd. Todoroki rolled his eyes at the two's antics. My condolences to your future partners. Don't pick on them, Todoroki. They're gonna put bugs in your bed or something, Midoriya warned. We would do worse than that, Zero promised. We could dump water on you in the middle of the night, or hide all your clothes with the horses. Or we could swap your sword with a pool noodle. They kept going like that, suggesting prank ideas, and the four of them were so wrapped up in their conversation they didn't notice what was in front of them until a hush fell amongst the soldiers. eijirou glanced up and his heart almost stopped at what he saw. A ruined village, some buildings still ablaze, but most of them reduced to ash. Not a soul in sight. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. I think I've finally been able to get in the groove of recording these audiobook type videos. I am very proud of myself. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction, XX Cypress Minerva XX on AO3. I would highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel, and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing, my sunflowers. Mwah!